Monica, here we are again on a Friday. I like the idea of us coming together, having a quick chat, check in, see what's happening. So, how are things in your world?
My world is great. Thank you for asking.
What's something fun happening with you?
Something fun. Well, I just had a phone call with a client, and so I'm excited about some upcoming events and the potential relationships and new connections and people I
Got
get
a
to
bunch of
meet.
upcoming. So, like, you're in like all different locations. Just give me some of the places we were just talking about where you're going to be. So, Montana.
Montana, uh, Portland, I think, or Granite State. It's kind of a
Okay.
conglomeration of things happening up
Okay.
there. Pennsylvania, going to Penn
Washington,
State,
D.C.
Washington, D.C.,
It's going to be
Dallas,
so fun.
Texas. Hey,
Yeah. So you've got a great little upcoming things that you're gonna get to be a part of with all kinds of fun clients. So that's fun.
how about you? What's going on in your world? I mean, I
My
know, but I want everyone else to know too.
my world is filled with we were talking about this idea of like creative expression or just creativity, the idea of how we're working on a new website, I'm putting together a little book, creating these branding things, we'll have all this new stuff that's available for folks, and just the creative process for accessing new thoughts, new ways of envisioning myself. I did a post yesterday on LinkedIn about Dr. Seuss. I don't know if you saw it, but this guy, like, I only think of Dr. Seuss as a children's book author. Like, do you know him in any other capacity?
No, I don't. I mean,
Well,
but I know the depth of his books because I've read all of them multiple
right.
times.
But he like none of the he had a couple ones on Mulberry Street was the first one that came out, and then he had like gaps. He was
Yeah.
7 years he didn't write anything, and so just the idea of and he stayed aligned with who he was as an artist, but just kind of evolved this new way. And so like that's really been for me in this creative process. Like, all right, I've had I have these seasons of life that I've kind of whether done with decades or just with like career paths. And just even in this season, like evaluating, all right, there's definitely a shift happening. It's ironically a shift in like my focus and my energies, my attention. I moved, last year we did the Disrupt Hawks agency. And so a lot of things have been in place or no longer in place. And so I think now like the disruption we really committed to, like the kind of the fruit of it now is like taking shape. And I don't know in people's worlds how stuff feels chaotic and stuff changing, and then the aftermath is okay, finding my way, and now look, in this new way, new things are emerging. That's kind of how I feel about it right now. Is this kind of springing forth of terminology, efforts, and ways of serving humanity that I haven't done yet. And so I'm really excited about it, but it's exhausting. And I know it's exhausting to you, the creative process on like so many different options. And of course, I've enlisted our friend ChatGPT, who's become a partner, a brainstorming partner. And the one thing that I've found with him that people have talked about, and I haven't heard this conversation, is that everybody talks about having the right prompts. Like, man, use this exact prompt, say these exact words to get this
Yeah.
kind of response. And yet, what I find is he creates prompts for me. Like, I have the exact
Me
opposite.
as in Chat GPT.
He is in ChatGPT.
Okay. It's like, wait, what are we
He is
talking
in
about?
Chat. Monica, he and I are tight. And so I find that when I interact with him, what he kind of feeds back to me prompts me to think about things, prompts me to look at different ways of articulating and even thinking about what I'm doing. And so it's such an interesting kind of twist on how most people are experiencing ChatGPT. Whereas like I'm experienced like it's provoking me to and have my own different thoughts and experiences and ideas. So I've really loved that process. Like I love the creative process.
So, if you had to like hone in on what is the creative process into like a couple steps, like that you have to repeat over and over again, what is that process?
First, I am open to new and different ideas.
Be open to new and different ideas.
Just
Okay.
be open because okay, so that I have to start from that place where I'm like, I'm sincerely willing to take on something new that hasn't been before. And I've had to learn this because what I found, Monica, is like we'd have these conversations, you and I have these conversations, and there are new things, and I'm like, I'm kind of resistant because I like so much what has been, and yet the whole point of change, transformation, evolution is something different. And so I have to remind myself, be open that this new language, this new terminology is the forward direction and not remaining where you've been. So being
That's that.
open. Second, for me, is exploration, where I'm like, let me explore this idea. Let me explore this terminology. Let me explore these graphics and these things, like, so for me, I consider that an exploration of it. So
Be open,
open,
explore.
explore. Third, invite collaborative partners. You are fantastic because you help to guardrail things in. I've got other people that are like helping with edits, like saying, this isn't necessary, this is necessary, this is it. So I need outside voices to bring a perspective that know and care about me, and also can say, hey, you're kind of rabbit holing, or that's enough for that. So having people in my life that are good collaborators for guardrails, maybe boundaries in a sense. Those might be a little strong words, but kind of that keeping it in so it's just not a continuous effort of exploration without then definition of like, okay, this is it, let's move on.
Yeah. And then what's fourth?
And then I would say the fourth is that decision making, landing, deciding, settling. Which is a struggle when there's time limits. I'm grateful for we're going to be landing on it like this. It has to be it. And we're at that point. So thankfully we're at this point where I have to turn stuff in.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's it. That's what we're going with. So
I just chuckle because I think that we all have our probably within that process of like being open, exploration, having guardrails and editing and collaboration, all those things, and then deciding, having like we all have our points where it's like, oh, that's easy for me, oh that, and then other ones are just rough. And I think we have found your.
Here's what's funny, and you know this, I like making decisions. I'm pretty good at just going, let's just make a decision and go with it. So what happens is now that we've come up against like the deadline, it's really helpful for me to go, okay, I've done all these, I'll consider all these, I'm landing on this, and this is what we're doing. Because you've had the experience, I've sent you something like, this is it, and you're like, we'll see, because we know that time still evolves, and so just being able to go, that season is over, I'm settled on all this, and we're moving forward with that. Deadlines really help with that. So that's been my week.
So to shore this up, because I think this is really valuable for people, if you are at a point where you are either restarting or rebranding or needing to engage in creativity and in the creative process, maybe to problem solve or in the recreation of a website or whatever, to recognize the process, recognize where you're at in it, and then take, as I would say, your next right step. More time, if somebody's at that point and they need to move forward in this creative process, what should they do?
Be open to what that change really is.
Yes.
Explore the options thoroughly if you're of that mind, and then invite other people in to edit and go, okay, let's get all this out of the way. You explored thoroughly. Let us help you cut through. And you have to stay open in that phase also, because hearing from people, it may not be your preference.
Yeah.
And that's the point of having other people. And again, Monica, you're familiar with that. But just then settling and going, okay, here we are. This is it. I'm moving forward. Which is really interesting to have this conversation, because I usually like this phase the most. Like, let's just make a decision and do it. So this feels very almost sacred to me, all these things, because there's so much of like sense of calling, sense of reputation, identity. So it's like, let's be a little more cautious in our decision making. But here we are. We're making it. So I agree. It's a good framework for people who are moving forward. So man, thanks for having this conversation. Checking in, Monica.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing it.
It's so fun. All right. I'll see you again next week. How about that?
Sounds good.
All right. Bye.
Bye.